One. Good morning, y'all. It's your boy Joshua Edwards. I am your host of Shop Talk Quitting. And today we have a special guest with us. And this special guest is she got some things going on in the hair space. But I want bookkeeping space.
Yeah.
Bookkeeping space. I faux pas on that for a second. I got your account mixed up with somebody else's. So
You know what? I
bookkeep.
thought you were just like commenting on my hair. I just,
I it,
watched it. So,
that's
oh, thank you.
you caught me. You caught me. It it confused me there for a second because it looks good. Looks
I
good.
appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. You mean your bookkeeper's got to look good some days for the most
There
part.
you go. There
I
you
do a
go.
lot of work at home. You know what I mean? So, like, some days, like, I could go all day still in my pajamas, but you know what I mean? I got to get out of that mindset sometimes. And like, I am working. I got to, get up and get ready for the day because it can be very easy just to slip into, I'm just going to put my robe on and hop on the computer and then it's 5 o'clock and I'm like, oh my goodness, what's going on?
I got you. I got you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Laura to the show. So, Laura, what I want you to do is I want you to take 2 3 minutes and I want you to give everybody the 411 who you are, where you grew up, and what you're doing now.
All right. So currently I am in Trenton, but I did grow up about an hour down the road in Newcastle. And bookkeeping wasn't my first thought. I was like, I'm gonna be a news anchor. I'm gonna be make it big on TV, and so I ended up at Loyalist in the broadcasting program, and at the time it was one of the top programs. Like there, you could find a Loyalist grad in broadcasting anywhere at the time.
What year did you go?
So I graduated. Funny enough, I still have the diplomas on the wall. I haven't switched them out with my accounting. So I graduated in 2011. But so I was there for 3 years.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. So I graduated from that and I was doing some radio work and you know what I mean? I was not like my dreams were up here and I'm like, I'm gonna do all this, not taking consideration. I was like 19, 20 at the time. All the baby steps along the way you do to get there, right? So I'm pulling weekends, working at 3 a.m, like working for peanuts. And I was like, okay, this isn't what I was thinking, and it wasn't what I was ready or prepared for. So, anyways, I'm out in Belleville. I'm like, I got to pay the bills. I got to pay rent. So I was picking up side jobs. And, I ended up falling into like a full-time gig, but I'm like, it's not, it's not what I wanted to do. So got married, started a family, and I was climbing the ladder a bit where I was. And I was like, okay, I could do this. It's driving, it's allowing me that family life. And then so I go on mat leave. And I come back from mat leave and they're like, oh, hey, that great work schedule you had, we can no longer offer you. So you're going to be working like 4 to 12s, 3 to 11s, Sunday through to Thursday or whatever. So I'm like, oh my goodness.
What?
So I have a little kid who I'm like, okay, daycare hours are only 9 to 5. So now I'm like, great, I can spend that time with my kid during the day. But and then my husband was working like long hours. So I'm like, this is insane. And it just in all my progress at this job had just stopped. Everything had just halted. And I started back at the very bottom, but changes were being made. And I get it. It's business. Like things are always moving and changing. And at the end of the day, if the business is going to be profitable, anyways, things change. So there just wasn't the room for me to grow. So at this point, I'm like, what are my strengths? What am I good at? What do I want to do? And so I ended back up at Loyalist in the accounting program. And my mom was like, oh, you're going to become a CPA. You need letters at the end of your name. I'm like, one step at a time. And anyway, so I was going there and found that there's just really a lot of really good bookkeepers lacking in the area. And I'm like, I'm organized. I'm on top of this. I'm like, this is like something I can do. And the jobs I was picking up beforehand had kind of like led me to, yeah, like this is something I I'm enjoy, I can be really good at. So anyways, I graduated from Loyalist, and you mean smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. I had actually had a job lined up, doing like some financial stuff, and then we're in complete lockdown. So I'm back at square one again. I was like, oh no. So one of my classmates and I, we had actually like, we were just catching up over lunch one day, and I think she was selling Arbonne. So we originally went, I'm like, I'm going to flip through a calendar, catch up with some friends. And uh, she asked me, you mean kind of like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I need to get in. I need to get into the market. I need something new. And she was like, me too. So she had some connections, and we decided to actually form Countryside Business. So we did that for about a year, and you mean I we made some really great connections. We were doing well, and then she kind of realized for herself, this isn't for me. So she found a new business venture, which she's thriving in, which is amazing, and that led me to My Bookkeeper by the Bay. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm doing now, and I just felt like I'm looking kind of like back at the past 10 years, and it's just kind of crazy how little things you mean have added up to, it's almost like seems like it's got to be fate, like all these little things just kind of working in the right direction to get me here to where I need to be. And it's just been wonderful. Like I'm really like I have my own, I can really create my own schedule to a certain degree. And it's giving me that work life balance that I've just always strived for. That you mean just at the end of the day is good for my mental health. Cause you mean when I'm in good space, I can be that much better for my clients. You mean it's nothing worse than someone looking after your finances and they're frazzled and can't find anything themselves, right? So the fact that I have these wonderful clients who don't mind if I'm either picking up some of their stuff and working away at 6 in the morning or 6 at night. And you mean, it's just, I can work it into my day around, you mean, my needs, my family needs. So yeah, it's been quite the journey, but I'm really happy with where I'm at now.
That is so incredible. I really, really appreciate you sharing that, Laura.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
it's funny. Like, I've been having this conversation a lot, and actually, you said something that I actually really want to like dig into because I'm like, this is gonna help people. You said something about like, like you're able to now have a schedule that suits your life and have that balance. And then you also said you have clients that are, they're more like understanding, accommodating of
Yes.
the lifestyle that you have. How much of it, this is where I want to go with you, how much of it for you being able to be confident and walk in the work life balance that you are now enjoying, how much of that for you was you deciding this is what I'm going to do, and how much of it was your clients just being really understanding and accommodating that kind of gave you that like, no, this is we're doing this, and this is good? Because I think the answer, I think it's going to help people because we find ourselves sometimes in, and this is like years of like we've walked in this business space where everything's rigid and like the
Mhm.
customer's always right, and you gotta bend to the like whatever they need, you gotta do it or else. And there wasn't really a conversation about how to create healthy boundaries, how to create a work-life balance that actually suited your life and made you enjoy what you do, and make money at it. So what
Yeah.
what was that factor for you between those two things? You deciding I'm gonna do this for me, and also I have really awesome clients that are giving me the space to be able to do this.
Yeah. So I think what kind of helps, especially in my area, is that I did have quite a few clients who were like in dire need. They were either felt to be too small business, where if they went to a larger accounting firm, it's like they were too small potatoes. They felt their needs weren't being met. So I think I had quite a few clients who were coming to me being like, we just need this work done. We need help. We are willing to work around your schedule. So that was super helpful. But then to a certain degree, I like to be upfront as well and like managing their expectations. So if this is the task you're giving me, I don't want to be like, yeah, I'm going to definitely guarantee to turn this around and give it to you by 5 o'clock tomorrow. because that's not always the case. So it's definitely that compromise of finding what are your business needs, what can I give you, where can we meet in the middle so that your business is being taken care of, but at the same time I'm not jeopardizing my time or my mental space, because it's not good for them either. If I'm like, yeah, I've just guaranteed 6 clients, I'm going to have their work done by 5 o'clock tomorrow, right?
Mm.
So I think too, just setting up that, I mean, upfrontness of like, this is going to get done. But at the same time, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, you just gave it to me. Yeah, I'll get it back to you in a month. So again, and I think just showing them repeatedly, me showing up for them in the time frame I am going to show up for them, has helped help create that trust as well. So that they know, okay, Laura said she's going to get this done. I don't have to worry about it. It's going to get done. It's going to get done in a timely manner. And it's not, it's not, they don't have to be concerned. I do have the odd client who still does want me, you mean on site, which I get it. And again, business needs vary and depending on the software they're using. But yeah, for the most part, just I think the way technology has gone too, there's so many cloud-based programs that a lot of my clients realize, hey, it's not pertinent that my stuff gets done between 9 and 5. Or I do have a lot of clients as well. Again, they're small business owners. They get it and they understand. Like, it's not, I feel like this 9 to 5, it's really not feasible anymore. And if it's not feasible for them, they're not trying to put it on me, because they know, like, if it doesn't work for me, why would it work for someone else? Granted, I mean, 9 to 5, I think can works for some people. You mean, I don't begrudge them that. But yeah, I just think we've moved into such a time that it's not. I do kind of leave that open line of communication as well. Like, I'll have the odd client call and be like, is it okay? It is around dinner time. Is it okay if I call you? And I'm like, you mean if I have the time open? Absolutely. Why not? So, but again, yeah, I think from the get-go, just establishing this is what I can do for you, and then delivering on it has really helped create that bond with my clients so that they know they're not going to be left by the wayside. Because sometimes I think that's it too for clients. So like, I'm trusting you with my financial information. I'm trusting you to communicate on my behalf with the CRA and to pay my bills. Like, it's a lot of trust. So sometimes I can get the hesitancy when we're first starting up. But you mean, it's when you show them that you're delivering and you're consistently, upfront with them, I feel like it's a long way.
I love that. Setting expectations from the get-go. Super, super helpful thing in business. And I don't know if you find this, Lyra. I find that, like, you set them up front, and then I don't know if you've experienced this, like it's a constant, like, reminder. So you set them up front, but then it's always like that kind of reminding as they go throughout the process, because they got a million things that they're doing in a day, and then maybe they forgot about, like, a policy that you have about whatever the case may be, and then it's always kind of like resetting and then reminding. Do you find that in the space?
I find it doesn't last too long. But I always feel like, I don't know if you've ever seen like those like jokes on social media where they're like, oh, like, this is what, when you say this thing in an email, this is what it means. And they're like, as per my last email, actually really means something not too nice. And I always laugh because I don't mean it to come across as mean, but I do have to sometimes bring up that point. It's like, hey, we did discuss this. Do you remember? And just drawing their attention to that time we had that discussion, and that they did agree to the boundary or the arrangement at hand. And for the most part, it doesn't happen too often. But yes, I've definitely been there of like, we did talk about this. But yeah, I'm really fortunate with the client base I have that I try and get them into a really good routine so that they can expect this is the time frame each month, or this is what needs to be done. Or like, I like to touch base with them in the beginning of the month, because I'll submit often for some of my clients HST, and every business varies. Some of them submit monthly, some of them are quarterly, and some of them, like, it is quarterly, but their fiscal year isn't on the calendar year. So sometimes they need me for those reminders of, hey, this is what's due this month. So I like to kind of just give them a rundown of like, this is what I need from you this month to finish this. This is what we're doing this month, and this is what needs to be paid and when. So sometimes we get into that role of like, all right, she's got this. She's going to let me know it needs to be done. And then I find sometimes those worries or those questions start to stop because they realize that they don't need to micromanage. But again, at the same time, it's their money. I can get it. You mean if I was like to release the reins of my bank account to someone else, I'd be like, okay, what are you doing in there? Why'd you move that? So yeah, again, it's really building that trust to create that routine, to really just offer my clients that assurance that everything's okay.
Wonderful. I absolutely love that. Yeah, this here's kind of a question that I'm just sheer curiosity. You talked about like the schedule, you're loving it. What's one thing that's been a highlight for you that you're like, I absolutely love this about the schedule that I have now. Operating my own business, being able to set, my hours within reason. Like, what's something that you're absolutely loving about the schedule that you have right
now? It's really huge for me to be able to bring my son to school and pick him up. And it seems so small. But when I was going to school, I mean, it was my husband's schedule. Like he was always had to be in some sort of Y program. And you mean there's before school cares, after school care. And like my youngest is only 6 years old. So that can be such a long day. So being able to have that morning with him of like, I have my coffee, he's having his cereal. Like we have that morning time together. And I can get him off to school because sometimes it's those little conversations because he's 6, but he's very much getting into like, Mom, like I'm too cool to hang out with you. I'm going to go play Minecraft and I'm going to go hang out with my big brother and I'm going to go do this. So sometimes catching him in those little moments of the day, I get those like, how was your day? And I get like the funny stories from school and whatnot. And sometimes I would find when I was going to school and he'd have to be in a Y program or some sort of childcare program after school. By the time I'm getting him, he's exhausted. He's tired. He's had a long day. He's ready just for dinner and to crash. And I just felt like I was missing those moments. So being able, to do those little things, just, it allows me to partake in those small moments, which I feel like lead to the bigger memories later on in life. I was so fortunate to grow up with a stay-at-home mom. My dad was an entrepreneur himself, and he was hustling, but he always made sure that he was able to coach a baseball team, and we did martial arts together, so we had our stuff. But my mom was there dropping us off, picking us up, bringing us to activities, and it was like those moments throughout the day with her and like the conversations that just kind of really built on the relationship we had. And so yeah, both of them have kind of like shown me the best of both worlds, and I'm like, I want it all. So how do I go?
And why can't you have it all?
Yeah.
Yep. That is so cool. I really appreciate you sharing that. Like, and I feel like there's gonna be like so many moms and entrepreneurs that are gonna like resonate with what you just said, because you're so right. Like being able to have those moments, I absolutely love the simple things of life. Like it does not take much to make Josh happy. A cup of coffee, a nice sunrise, and being able to have those like meaningful conversations and just those small moments of connecting. And like you said, it might be a small moment, but it's huge in the whole landscape of life and what we're wanting out of it. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Okay.
So go with me here. So you have this incredible business, you're helping clients win. And by the way, I'm a huge fan of the work that you do. Like it is so helpful to business owners and something that like can just be taken off their plate. They don't have to worry about it. They know that you have it in hand. So I appreciate the work that you do 100%. Looking down the road, I like to talk about dreams and visions and legacy and what we're trying to build. For you, when you think about the future, when you think about like where you're taking your business, where you're taking your life, maybe you've talked about this before, maybe you haven't shared some of this before. What comes to your mind as something that you see for yourself, for your family, for your business going into the future? What does that look like to you when those thoughts enter your mind now?
So, it's a really good question. I've kind of taken because this was such a big goal of mine that I feel like I finally like checked off. I'm kind of in the stage of kind of like restructuring what that 5-year plan looks like. You mean I do have some smaller goals that I'd like to hit, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I would like to you mean I wanna see it grow. I'd like to be able to, reconnect with professors at Loyalist College and take on, co-op students if they want, and then at that point, kind of help build, the next round of good bookkeepers, or if I find a good fit myself taking, employee on so that way I can take on more business. I would absolutely love, and I have no idea if my boys would even be somewhat interested in this, but I'd love to be able to have a company to pass on to one of them if they see fit. Because I think sometimes, because I get it a lot. People are always like, well, what's the difference between a bookkeeper and accountant? And why don't, and love my mother, but she's guilty of this too. Why don't you just go through and become an accountant? And I just feel like I found a niche. I found a niche market that really needs the help. And it's been wonderful in that sense where would it be nice to have some letters next to my name? Yeah, and maybe that's something for down the road, but right now for what I'm offering to my clients and what they need, those letters aren't really a necessity. So I think like in the grand scheme of things, like it would be nice to have this company grow it, be able to pass it down to my children if they want it. But by all means, if they kind of look at this and be like, oh my goodness, mom was working all over the place. I want a 9 to 5. Then I guess that's for them. One funny thing my mom always tells me is she's like, the hippies gave birth to the lawyers and the lawyers gave birth to the hippies, and it's just an ongoing cycle. So I'm like, here, I feel like I'm going out and doing this like not 9 to 5. And I'm like, watch, my kids are gonna be like, we just want a 9 to 5 and a T4, please. So it's one of those things I want to be able to give them the option and show them something else that's different, if they so choose. But at the same time, if maybe through connecting again through loyalists and co-op students, maybe I'll find an employee who, when I'm ready to retire, would love to take it on as well. So yeah, I think right now I'm just looking at crushing some smaller goals before I really look big. But yeah, it's something that I can see myself doing for quite some time, which is wonderful. So yeah, it's definitely, I think, some food for thought.
Wow, wow. You said it was a good question. That was an incredible answer. And there's a couple of things you said there that just really got my wheels spinning. Like one, giving back. Like you talked about, like taking on co-op students from Loyalist, and I went to Loyalist as well, and still have ties there. I think that's so cool that you want to give back and like kind of give people a leg up to be the best that they can be in their field going forward. Absolutely love that. You talked about bringing your boys into the business, in the future. I got two young sons as well, and I think about that a lot. I think about and I'll share this with you. I'm curious what you think. My intention, because I feel like I know my sons are gonna want to maybe do different things than maybe I'm doing, and I'm totally okay with that. They can pave their own path, but I would still like them to benefit from
Yeah.
what I've done. So here's the thought, and then you tell me, just give any type of honest feedback on it. You could be like, Josh, that's a sucky idea. No, don't do that. But my thought is eventually I want to grow my business to the point where my role as a CEO becomes redundant, and then I can just fall back and be owner. So that way, when it's time to hand the business off to my boys or whoever, they can actually just take over as owner, but then they got a CEO in the company that will run the day to day. So they don't have to be involved in the running of the day to day, but they can still have the ownership piece in the company. So that's where I think. So you had me thinking about that when you mentioned that.
I like it. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. No, now you've definitely given me something to think about. I just know for myself, and I think I get this from my dad. um, I don't know if I can actually like stop working. like I'm like, I don't know. And it's actually a question my husband and I have like talked about. We're like, what would we do with ourselves? And it's just funny, like the scenarios we play out in our heads. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just always have to be doing something. We always joke my dad's an entrepreneur and he's an auctioneer. So I think he's down to like a few sales a month. And but you mean he's on the road when he goes, and you mean sometimes he's like, oh, I don't always like the drive. And we're at the point where like, Dad, why don't you retire? And he's like, well, maybe I could go down to like 2 sales a month. And we're like, oh my goodness, we're like, you're still like, there's just always got to be something, right? And I don't know. At this point in time, I'm like, could I step back enough? I'm like, or would I still be involved in the company? But maybe I would just pick like a couple clients to work on. I don't know. I don't know what that would look like. But you mean my husband and I were always like we've always got to be busy. There's always got to be something. And then we'll complain. We're like, oh my God, we're so busy. And then we sit down, it'll be 10 minutes and we're like, let's go do something. Like, we can't sit still.
I'm going to throw something at you. And this is just random, but I'm really enjoying this conversation, by the way. And you get me thinking every time you make a comment. You said something earlier that I feel could be a potential answer to your thought around, will I still be involved? Teaching.
Yeah.
I can already tell just from the 30 minutes we've spent together that you are a wealth of knowledge. There's a lot of wisdom that you have to impart. I know my listeners are going to get wisdom from what you had to share today. And I feel like if anything, the teaching aspect of what you do and how you seem, it's perceived that you're inspired by that. I feel like that you'll never stop doing that, whether you're involved in the day-to-day business or not. You're going to be teaching in some sort of capacity because you got a lot to share.
That's interesting. Yeah. Oh, I'm enjoying this. I've definitely taken notes of what can we do later? Where can we go with this? Yeah. I do appreciate. I have one of my teachers at Loyola. She's my mentor now, and she's like an incredible wealth of knowledge. But it's one thing I really did appreciate about Loyalist, even when I went for the broadcasting. You mean your teachers were still in the industry. They were up to date on everything, and they were a wealth of connections. And it's just something I always really appreciated about the college. It wasn't just we're going to pull someone from somewhere. They have a million degrees and great, but if they don't know the industry, it's not always helpful. And always just really benefited from, their experiences. Like the most I always took away wasn't necessarily the things they put on the chalkboard that day, but it was like the real life aspect of it, or this is how I use this in this experience. And that's kind of how I like to relay things as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Lara, it's been absolutely incredible just hearing from you. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things going on here, and
thank you.
I just appreciate you being able to share your journey with us today. And I know it's going to help some people. And I wish you the very, very best in what you're doing. Maybe we'll get you down here to Florida at some point. We'll do a live episode.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Yeah, sign me up.
Wonderful. You have a terrific Friday and weekend. And I wish you all the success in your business.
You as well, Josh. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You take care.
Bye.